is equal to, and I'm going to use the color code for a minute to keep it that way, to show you 3 different ways today. So this is like a demonstration, okay? Density is equal to mass divided by volume. All right, go back in your memory to my cotton ball demonstration. Density is how much stuff there is in a certain container. Volume is how much you can hold. Mass is how much there is. Now, we usually think of mass as weight, don't we? Because we measure it that way. Because gravity's pushing down on it. Obviously, again, what single person has the most mass in this room? I do, don't I? Stephen's probably next. He's the next biggest. And right now, Jana probably has the smallest amount of mass. She's a little tiny petite girl, isn't she? Do what? Antonio? Yeah, he's skinny. No, I'm kidding. Come on, let's go. So, what density is how dense it is. How tightly packed is it in that container? And I showed you that. I could keep stuffing cotton balls in that can, couldn't I? And the more I stuffed, the harder it got, but the denser it got, right? If I took 5 cotton balls and put them in that can, could I take a pencil and push it down to the bottom of the can pretty easy? Just 5 cotton balls? Could. Not very dense, right? What if I put 50 cotton balls in there? Could I take a pencil and shove it down to the bottom? It'd be a lot harder, wouldn't it? Because the stuff's all tightly packed in there, isn't it? So do you get the idea in your brain what density is? Okay. We all know what mass is, how much stuff there is, and we put it on a triple beam balance and we weigh it. So now we know. And we know how to measure volume, right? We measure volume in liters. Okay. You don't need to yet. You'll want to eventually, but okay. So now what we're going to do is learn to solve problems. All right, the easiest way to solve problems is to start with the simplest one. So I'm going to give you a problem, and it's going to be real simple because all you need is your calculator. I'm going to tell you, I want to know the density. When I leave the number up there, or the letter up there, that means that's what we're solving for. Okay, that's the variable. All right? I'm going to tell you that the mass of this object was 332 grams. Okay? And I'm going to tell you the volume was 10 milliliters. What would you do?
Divide.
All you got to do is divide. Plug in your calculator. Tell me the answer. $33.2, right? Because all we would do is move the decimal place one. So it's 33.2 what? Both. Now, look what you got on a fraction. All you do is move all that down. So now we have 33.2 grams per milliliter. All right, what does that mean? If we had a liquid and we poured it in a graduated cylinder, for every milliliter, if we put 1 milliliter in only and we weighed it, how much would it weigh? 33.2 grams. So the density of that material is, it weighs 33.2 grams for every milliliter of volume you have. So is that a pretty heavy substance? Yeah. It's probably something like liquid mercury, liquid metal of some kind, wouldn't it be? Okay, really heavy. Water, so you know, water is 1.0 milliliters. Oh, I wrote it backwards, my bad. Grams per milliliter. Water is the base. Okay? So we compare everything to water. So if you put a drop of this in water, what would it do? Would it float, sink? What would that do? Which is heavier? Yeah, so it'd sink, wouldn't it? So if you took an eyedropper and sucked up 1 drop of this and put it in water, what would it do? Right to the bottom, wouldn't it? It would sink because it's heavier than water. Everybody understand? Okay? So that's all you do. Well, that's the easiest way to solve the problem. Now we got to stop doing science for a minute and remind ourselves how to do math. Okay, so I actually got to teach a math lesson this morning. That one's easy. happens though, if I give you the density is 6.5 grams per milliliter. Okay? I know that's the density, and I know the mass of this object, okay, is 45 grams. My question now is, how much is the volume? Now, here's where we completely stop science and go all the way back to math, and I hate this part. But we have to do it, so let's have a review of a math lesson, okay? How do we solve for a fraction on the bottom? How do we get it by itself?
You got to multiply.
There you go. Got to multiply both sides by what? Or in this case, not multiply, but do what? We want to get volume by itself.
You're going to multiply 6.5.
Okay, what would that do? We don't want it by itself. We want this all by itself. Wouldn't we first divide by 45 grams? Because what would that do? Cancel those out, right? But if we divide this side by 45 grams, what do we have to do over here? We have to divide that by 45 grams, right? So that's step one. All right, somebody in the, and I'm not done, so I'm going to go to red. Somebody on calculator do 6.5 divided by 45. We're going to end up with a little bitty number, aren't we?
292.5.
No, I think 292.5? Okay, do it again.
292.5. 292.5.
Why 6.5 what?
6.5 divided by 45. You should come up with a fraction.
0.14.
That's 0.14.
0.14?
I did time by the word. It's 0.14.
Okay.
But it says 0.144444.
Okay, well, we don't need to worry about that. Do you agree now, Stephen? It's 0.14? Okay. So now we have 0.14. See, that's just only 14%. What? Okay, look at this. What? What can we erase? What can we scratch out because it's on both top and bottom?
6.5.
We already did the numbers. What else can we scratch out?
That'd be.
Look at this part, guys. What else can we eliminate?
You do yours different. I don't know how.
Don't we have a G on the top and a G on the bottom? And in math, when you have one on the top and on the bottom, you can cancel them, right? So what's left? Okay, milliliters. Now, here's the problem. What's this fraction look like now? Doesn't it look like that? But is that what we want? So what do we got to do?
Put the answer in.
We got to flip it, right? Everybody remember your math? We can't solve for a fraction, can we? We need to have this be a whole number. So what would we do? Don't we flip it? And if you flip that, you got to flip this. Well, what's another way of writing that? 14, hang on, divided by 100, right? Isn't that what that says?
Yeah.
Isn't that the fraction? Isn't that 14 100ths? So if we flip this side, what do we need to do now?
14 times.
We have to flip this side. So now we end up with 100 over 14.
100 times 1 and then divide that.
Now,
14.
what will volume equal then? I got to remember algebra every year, coach. What's 100 divided by 14?
7.1428571. I think it's 143.
Okay, we only need two. After the decimal point, we only need two. 7 point what?
7.14.
7.14? 7.14 what?
Milliliters.
Now, let's go back. Are we looking for volume? Yes. Do we measure volume in milliliters?
Yeah.
So did we do good? Okay. So what's the volume of the container of a density? Let me go back. All the way back. I told you the density was 6.5, right? 6.5 grams. And we know the mass was 45 grams. Okay? What was the volume? 7.14? Okay, take 45 and divide by 7.14 and see if we come close to this. Remember, we rounded up a little bit, so it's gonna be a little off.
0.158.
No, you didn't do it right.
Hold on, what we?
45 divided by 7.14. It should be what? 6.1.
6.30.
Okay, 6.30, and that's awful close, isn't it? Now, why are we off a little? Because we rounded those numbers off, remember? Earlier. So did we do it right? We did, didn't we? We're real close, aren't we? Remember, in science, you may not come exact because in science, we always round those math numbers off. Otherwise, we'd have to put in 7.14285, 14285. We have to get all the numbers out to get it exact. So did you see how I went back and showed you that you're correct? We have the correct unit. We wanted milliliters because we're measuring volume. And we came up with the correct math. So now we know that if an object has a density of 6.5 grams, you can get 45 grams of it in 7.14 milliliters. Okay, now I've showed you how to solve two ways. That's the hardest way. It's always hardest when you have to solve for this variable. Let's do one more. Now we're going to solve for mass. So one more time, I'm going to give you this time the density, okay? And the density on this problem is 12.2 grams per milliliter. We don't know how much stuff we have. Okay, I'm going to ask you to solve for mass. But I'm going to tell you the volume, okay? I use red for volume, right? The volume is 3.85 milliliters. Okay, let's stop science and go back to math. How do we get mass by itself? You said it earlier.
Multiply them?
Yeah, we multiply. What do we multiply by? How do we get this to zero out? Wouldn't we multiply by 3.85 here over 1? Isn't that the way you do it in math? Because then what happens? If you got one on the top and one on the bottom of a fraction, what can you do? You cancel out. And we end up with mass over 1. And what is mass over 1 the same as? What is any number over 1? It's that number, right? So now we know we got mass. But if we multiply this side by 3.85, what do we also have to do? If you multiply one side, there you go, Chantel. You have to multiply this side by 3.85. So, let's do that, okay? All you got to do with your calculator is do 3.85 times 12.2. What does that equal?
46.97.
Does everybody agree? 46.97?
Yeah.
Okay, you guys did good. So we got 46.97. All right, 46.97 what? What were we trying to solve for?
Mass.
So what's our answer going to be in?
Grams.
Okay, are there grams up there, or do we have milliliters on top of a fraction? Do we have them on the bottom of a fraction? They cancel out. What's left? So move the grams down. All right, let's go back and check our math. Let's see if 12.2 is equal to 46.97 divided by 3.85. Do your math. This is how you check your answer. Did I do it right?
Yeah.
Is 46.97 divided by 3.85 equal 12.2?
Yeah.
It does, doesn't it? So you did good. And that's the three ways we solve density problems. Now, I've blown a lot of your minds, haven't I? And that's okay. Remember, I'm never going to punish you for the math part. We will help you with the math. I know, I'm good at math, and I hate math too. I'm good at it. It's almost a curse because I can do it, and yeah, it's good. But can you see how no matter what two things I give you, you can find the third one? If I give you the mass and the volume, you can find the density. That's the easiest. If I give you the density and the volume, you can find the mass. That's the next easiest. And if I give you the density and the mass, we can find the volume, but that's the hardest because we got to do fractions, then we got to flip it. But it works, doesn't it? We will go back and go through this again. Tomorrow, we're gonna go into the lab and we're gonna practice